Good evening, everybody. I hope that on the way in you managed to pick up a copy of our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah. It's a small blue siddur. And this evening we'll be davening, we'll be praying the evening service, followed by some words of memory by Sandy, Mark and Jackie, and then moving into our memorial prayers. Since we are in the month of Elul, we'll also be sounding the shofar to remind us that the high holidays are coming. And I can't imagine for Eugene and Sandy what it must mean with the high holidays coming and your mom not being at the Yontif table, where the Erev Rosh Hashanah is sitting with you, Kol Nidrei, and Yizkor this year will be different. At the beginning of the service this afternoon, I shared with you now with your mom gone and your dad, in a way you're orphans. That's the definition of an orphan. And it puts you into a different position of where you are the matriarchs of your family, looking at your children and grandchildren. You always wanted to be the matriarch, right? Your children and your grandchildren, and what you've learned from your mom, what you've learned from Josy, is something that's special that you're handing on to your children and also to your grandchildren. That strength of character that we heard so much about, not of, in a sense, when I think a couple of us said she didn't have airs and graces. And another way of looking at that is that she was true to herself. She was true to who she really was as a woman, not afraid to take a step into the deep unknown of a world that wasn't accepting of women. Let's face it, South Africa in those days wasn't accepting of a lot of things. But to step and to turn into and walk into a man's world so confidently, and finding that balance, that work-life and work-home balance between her life with your father at home, which is something that I remembered we talked about and then it was mentioned, into then her career. Not an easy thing to do. One thing that nobody said, and might still be said today, is that I hope I remember this correctly, is that in terms of using her mind, she had a brilliant mind. Numbers wasn't her thing, was it? So much. But she would always try her hardest. She really attempted to do things. But she became a treasurer, but it wasn't her thing. It wasn't her thing. Anything to be at the top, right? Anything to be at the top. And also, of course, it would be remiss of me to not mention her role in not-for-profit organizations, especially B'nai B'rith, and it was lovely that Peter Schiff was able to share the B'nai B'rith prayer. It's impossible for us to really bring in 94 years of a life. But what we try to do is to bring in the elements of her life and her personality, the things that were so endearing. to the forefront, so that we walk away and saying, that was Josy. Or if we think about something, that was who she was. That's what she represented. So tonight, as I said, we're going to begin with our Ma'ariv, our evening service. And there's not going to be a lot of singing tonight. And the little bit that I will sing, you'll see why I'm a rabbi and not a cantor. And so I invite you to, if you can recognize the tune, to please join along with me. We're going to begin, if you brought in a siddur, we're going to begin on page 3. Tell them I'm struggling to sing with angels, who hint at it in black words painted on old paper, gold edged by time. Tell them I wrestle the mirror every morning. Tell them I sit here invisible in space, nose running, coffee cold and bitter. Tell them I tell them everything, and everything is never enough. Tell them I'm davening, and voices rise up from within to startle children. Tell them I walk off into the woods to sing. Tell them I sing loudest next to waterfalls. Tell them the books get fewer, words go deeper, some take months to get through. Tell them there are moments when it's all perfect, above and below it's perfect. Even in moments in between where sparks in space, terrible, beautiful sparks in space, are merely metaphors for the void between one pore and another. Let us rise for the Baruch Hu on page 4. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. We may be seated as we continue with the blessing for the evening, Ma'ariv Barabim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Barabim, b'chokhmah potech sharim, ובתבונה משנה עתים ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים ברשמותיהם בהרכיר כרצונו. בורא יום בלילה גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. החי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. On page 9. All goodness and truth are yours, O God. May no evil estrange us from you. Let error not confound us. Help us understand your will. In adversity and prosperity, may your law be our light. May our deeds reflect your love. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. We continue with the Via Hafta and the Shema silently coming together on the bottom of page 13. Via Hafta et Adonai Elohecha. Middle of page 13. Leman tizkaru v'asitem ekom mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'lohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti lechem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihyot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 15. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory, may earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, It has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot ohosef eleh, nora tehilot ohosef eleh. Malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze li anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov u'galo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, ga'al Yisrael. On page 18. On page 18 it's a prayer that asks God to protect us as we go to sleep at night. We lay our head on the pillow, we fall asleep, and we have no control, really, in waking up in the morning. We do wake up, and then there's occasions where we don't. And in those moments that we don't, it's when we pass on to the next life, when we die. And this prayer is that reality in the sense that we go to sleep, and we ask God to protect us. And it uses the same metaphor, the same imagery as Al Malei Rachamim, one of the final prayers that we say, and that we'll say for Josy again, we said it this afternoon. And it uses the same imagery of shelter us when we go to sleep at night, under the presence of the shadow or the presence of your wings. And that's the same as what we'll say for Josy. Shelter Josy as she goes to her eternal rest. Shelter her under the presence of your wings. The same imagery, and I think that that's very comforting because it's about the protection, especially protection when we have no control. And one of the things that for us as human beings is we often don't feel in control of things, and this is something we have no control over. So we're on page 18. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace, guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God, our going out and our coming to life and to peace, evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, Shomer Amo Yisrael, La'ad. Let's rise for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 20. Yitgadal v'yitkadesh shemei rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala, ba'gala, u'bizman kariv v'yamiru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach, le'olam olam me'almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitmar v'tramayim v'tnasa, v'tadar, v'taleh, v'talal, shemei l'kodesha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'mi iran be'alma, v'yimaru, Amen. The Amidah begins on page 22. I'll share with you the opening and then we'll come together on page 46 with Oseh Shalom. We'll use that time to share the words on the page, reading either the right or the left-hand side of the page. Perhaps it's just time for meditation or for silent prayer. And when you feel you've completed your meditation or your prayers, your personal prayers, I invite you to sit down when you're comfortable and ready. Page 22. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu. And we'll continue silently. Please join with me on page 46. Ose shalom limroma, Ose shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, ve'imru, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. So we pause now before we head into our Yizkor, our memorial prayers. First, the eulogies, some more eulogies, Hesled's words of memory, really, to share a little about Josy's life. And sharing with us this evening is Sandy, Mark, and Jackie. So please come on up.
I'm actually going to start with just saying a few words about our sister who couldn't be here tonight. She's unwell and we pray for a speedy recovery, and our thoughts are with her. And that's where I am. Okay, so I wanted to start with a quote about Josy, or for Josy I should say, that I thought was very pertinent to who she was. Courage is the foundation of determination. Determination and courage are the cornerstones of success. That gem, published by the author M.K. Soni, reflects the strengths that Josy, our mum, displayed throughout her life. Born in Holland in 1925, the oldest of 3 children, Josy emigrated to South Africa at the age of 10. And she very quickly learned to speak English. She actually could still speak Dutch right up until the end of her life, speaking to Mark's wife, who's Dutch, in that native tongue. She was amazing. She decided at an early age that she wanted to be a doctor. Her challenge then was that girls were not allowed to study science at school. When in 1942 she applied to enter a medical degree in Johannesburg, she was advised of her ineligibility. Josy, quite undeterred, convinced the panel that she would study her missing school science content alongside undertaking first-year medicine. It was agreed that she could do this and progress her medical degree only if she caught up on her school science by the end of first-year medicine. With sheer determination, courage, and hard work, Josy succeeded in gaining her general medical degree and then specialising as an anaesthetist. Her early hospital experiences were definitely challenging. On inquiring whether female doctors changed into theatre clothes prior to surgery, she was told to use the male change room. In those days, there simply were no provisions for female medical specialists. But none of this discouraged Josy. She loved her profession, working until the age of 72. One of my early memories of her work was listening to the news in Johannesburg, where there was no TV yet, and hearing about the first successful surgery to separate conjoined twins, where my mum was part of that skilled medical team. Josy was always modest about her achievements. That started early, when in her single days, boys ran a mile on learning that she was a medical student. When she was introduced to Gerald, our dad, she told him she worked in a butcher's shop. He clearly wasn't put off. He rang her one evening, only to be told by Josy's mum that she was at the hospital. He rushed there thinking something awful had happened to her, and discovered the truth. Throughout their marriage, Josy ensured that her medical career never eclipsed his accomplished career in architecture. Josy led an amazingly active life. She played tennis, bridge, and golf for as long as she could. And in fact, I was told that the Thursday afternoon prior to her tragic fall, she played one of her best games of bridge. She kept playing bridge 2 to 3 times a week, not always well, but she kept at it right to the end. Josy always was fearful of losing her cognitive capacity, working on training her brain for an hour every single day, using online lumosity games to keep her memory, spatial orientation, and other cognitive functions sharp. This occurred over the past 15 years, including in hospital last week. At 94 years old, that was incredible. Josy did succeed in keeping her mind sharp and active, but sadly her senses lacked that sharpness. She was most distressed about losing her sight from advanced macular degeneration and about the decline in her hearing, taste, and smell. If she'd only been able to fix these herself, she would have. Many of you have shared stories with me about Josy, about your admiration of her, but also about her uniqueness. There is no doubt that our mum was a real character. She was a straight shooter, no guessing what she was thinking. She was the truth teller. She just said it as it was, not always to her or others' benefit, but nonetheless out it came with absolute innocence. Josy was feisty, right up to the end, directing all the medical staff, fighting for what was important to her. She was a problem solver, a can-do person. Not much really fazed her. Some have described her to me as a force of nature. With and despite all of these qualities, Josy endeared herself to so many. She was confident within herself, paying very little attention to fashion nor appearance, but rather being more interested in current affairs, political views, books, medical science, technology, and environmental issues. Josy enjoyed her lengthy memberships of B'nai B'rith, Probus, and her Evergreen group. I must share one small anecdote to illustrate her character. When Josy wanted to do something, she just did it. In her later years, she gave up driving. And if we were unavailable or a taxi took too long, Josy would stand on a corner with a set of traffic lights there, waiting for the red light, checking for a lovely looking driver, and then knock on the window and ask for a lift. We, on learning about this, were horrified. I'm still unsure if she stopped that practice when we begged her to. Her determination was clear in everything she did, from having to rewrite her general medical exam at the age of 50, following our emigration to Australia, to learning to cook at that age, learning every sport or activity that our dad was interested in, and making an active life for herself when he passed away in 1993. We are all very proud of her. She gave us the gift of resilience and strength in adversity. Josy taught us, her 3 daughters, about being independent and leading a substantial, meaningful life. Ma, you were an inspiration to Jean, Anne, and I, and to others. You were well loved by the large family of which you felt so proud to be the matriarch. Our memories live on, and so you will continue to be a part of all our lives. You are now where you wanted to be. Rest in peace.
First and foremost, our family would like to thank everyone for being here today. To my grandmother's friends who are here today, we would like to acknowledge your part in Josy's life and the contribution to this extraordinary lady's journey. My name is Mark, and I'm one of Josy's grandsons, and have the pleasure of saying a few words today. Bobby, as we dearly refer to her, was a healer, a leader, a philanthropist, and a consummate professional. And to many of us, a mother, a wife, a sister, grandmother, great-grandmother, and a friend. Our Bobby was definitely one of a kind. When I think about the stories that best sum up our Bobby, I think of her trying to get some sleep one night many years ago, at a time when her new neighbour had just bought a new dog. That dog would bark every night from the ghastly hours of midnight to 4 a.m, weeks on end. After pleading with the neighbour to keep the dog quiet, she resorted to her final Bobby tactic. One night, she waited up until 4 a.m, found the neighbour's phone number, and called their house phone. After 7 or 8 loud rings, the neighbour finally answered the phone, bothered and tired, seeking to know who was on the phone. "Hello," they managed to say. Now, rather than telling that neighbour to keep the dog quiet, at the top of her voice she yells, "Woof, woof!" She hangs up the phone and she goes to sleep. I hope that perhaps helped to lift the mood here. Her fierce spirit is but one part of my grandmother's complex persona. Many of you will remember her for her generous and giving nature. In fact, she had an uncanny way of inspiring and motivating people to help others too. I remember one day I came over and she told me about a man with the golden arms, a man by the name of James Harrison, who by giving blood for over 60 years has helped save a record 2 million babies with his generosity. She told me that I should start giving blood regularly and help save lives, not because one day I might need blood, but because it was the right thing to do. I went down to Hawthorne Road the next day and registered as a donor. Thank you, Bobby, for truly being a person of impact who has helped make this world a better place. Her husband Gerald, my grandfather, passed away some 25 years ago. And while she never married or remarried, she surrounded herself with people, friends from all walks of life, and welcomed them into her home like they were family. The thing about our Bobby is she could look deep into your soul, actively listen to everyone around her, and take a genuine interest in the conversation. Much to the dismay of many, she could also call a spade and deliver a consistently blunt and direct message that many of us would come to know as a much-loved Bobbyism, and there were many. My hope today is that in Bobby's passing, we all take something positive away that will maintain her legacy. So after you leave here today, I ask you, please, spend more time with your loved ones. Give that special person an extra long hug. Agree to disagree in your next argument. Be present and really listen when someone comes to you with a problem, and partake in that act of generosity. I'm sure our grandmother would have wished for this. Bobby, on behalf of your grandchildren, David, Leon, Alan, Sasha, Oscar, Sharon, and I, we want you to know how proud and grateful we are to have had you in our lives, and we wish you rest in peace. We appreciate the opportunity we were given to say goodbye, and will cherish our time that we have enjoyed with you always. We love you dearly and forever. Thank you.
I stand before you humbly, and I'm about to say a few things for a speech that I wrote last night. Some of you will have heard similar things in what I'm about to say at the funeral today, so forgive me for repetition. I also stand here, I am not a member of the family. Although sometimes Josy's 3 daughters wondered whether she considered me a 4th daughter or a friend. And frankly, it really doesn't matter. The first time I had any connection with Josy was when she rang me from B'nai B'rith to say they were having a supper and I should come to help set up. I found the words "should" very confronting. But as she spoke, I remember that I had heard she was recovering from a triple bypass. So I said to myself, if she can manage this supper after a triple bypass, the least I can do is help. And there started our friendship. It took a while for me to warm to this abrupt South African, authoritarian manner in which Josy spoke. We enjoyed working together for B'nai B'rith. I admired her tremendously, her generosity, her integrity, her persistence, and her methodical manner of recording all she did, also for the Probus group and for the Evergreens. Once she and I went away for the weekend to arrange a bus tour for the Wallenbergers of B'nai B'rith to the Latrobe Valley. Having arranged hotel and motel accommodation and activities, we decided to climb the Agnes Falls. This is 25-something years ago. We climbed to the top, and when we got there we made an agreement. Each of us would go as fast as possible on a separate path and see who got to the base first. Well, I took one path, she took the other, and I get to the bottom, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. And then I begin to panic. I've lost Josy. How will I find her, and who shall I call? When down the track come some backpackers. Timidly I asked, have you by any chance seen an elderly, note the word then, elderly lady wearing whatever? Oh yes, they said. She passed us ages ago. She left the forest. So Josy had got to the base, walked out of the forest and was sitting there waiting for me. 17 years younger than myself, and she was out first. We often laughed about it, and I maintained basically that she wanted to lose me. Within the years we became very close. I adored her. She invited me to be part of her family, and I don't think there was a wedding, a birth, or any wonderful, happy occasion in her life that she didn't invite me to, and vice versa. I remember many weekend holidays at her holiday home in Rye, where her dog, I was trying to think of his name, Bundi, would pull her up the steep steps. I remember her loyalty, her honesty, her integrity, and her modesty. And never once did I ever hear her say, I'm a doctor, I know better. She had her beliefs, and they were strong and nearly unwavering. The absolute loves of her life were her children, her grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She lived their lives, but never in a crowded way. She was very independent and very, very proud. I remember her telling me that she had taken her grandsons into a room in their teens, and said, I need to have a serious talk to you about the birds and the bees. I'm glad I was not a fly on the wall to see their faces, and I often think they were far too polite to ask, yes, what do you want to know? She was always very happy to share her well thought out advice, and she was wise. Wise enough to know never to cross her in-laws and never to give too much advice, if any at all, to the new grandmothers. That's the children of her grandchildren. And very loyal. Her children never knew whether Josy considered me her 4th daughter or a friend, and as I said, it doesn't really matter. She always said I was her Yiddish mama. Maybe because of my chicken soup. I always thought of her as my mentor, my confidant, and of course my friend. In later years, Josy and I would go out on regular dinner dates. She got all excited, she'd get dressed up, she'd carry a handbag and put on lipstick as well, and it was like her going out on a date. She did try a stint at art care. She came home after 2 weekends there. On inquiring about how was it, she said, it was good, it was clean, good food, good people, but I'm not ready for it yet. Interesting thing about Josy, she was willing to try everything. Acupuncture was her new profession following her career in anaesthetics. Golf, tennis, painting, gardening, bridge, iPad, computer, and new recipes for her famous chocolate brownies. And she would regale the latest news of each and every member of her family, top to bottom, head to tail. How lucky you all are to have had Josy as your matriarch, and how lucky and honoured am I to have had her as a friend. After walks on the beach, we'd come home. I remember well her passionate love of gardening and how proud she was that everything that grew in her garden, and of her golf and her walking. I remember well how she taught herself to paint and then proudly gave her paintings, which were done by numbers, to those who cared. You probably told them they were wonderful. I remember the meticulous manner in which Josy conducted meetings for our groups of evergreens, with an ongoing diary of activities, speakers and caterers, and who was designated to do what. I remember the meticulous manner in which she conducted activities for our Wallenberg unit of B'nai B'rith. I remember making her a promise that I would become active in Wallenberg as long as she stayed on. I kept my promise. I remember the many times she gave advice, called for or not, either about my children or about my weight. Really, Jackie, you don't want that second biscuit. And that was usually at a dinner party when I wanted to get under the table with embarrassment. I remember well her passion for bridge and for her friends. All her family knew her as Bobby. To me and all her friends, she is Josy, and what a force to be reckoned with. Josy maintained, and I think her children will agree with me, that when one passes, the body may go elsewhere, but the spirit is an electrical impulse, and that lingers on. How right she was. Josy, you are not physically in Kooyong Road anymore, but your spirit abides with all of us here today.
So many wonderful memories, and there are so many more out there. We're going to continue with our Yizkor prayers, and I invite you to turn to page 63. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, the sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from birth to death to life everlasting. Psalm 23 on the next page. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsa benot deshe yabatzeni, al mei menachot yanhaleni nafshi yeshavev, yancheni v'magle tzedek lama'an shemo. גם כי אלך בגיא צמוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. שבתך ומשענתך המה ינחמיני. תערוך לפנייך שולחן נגד צוררי. תשען צבא שמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. And from the Israeli poet Zelda on page 67. לכל איש יש שם שנתן לו אלוהים ונתנו לו אביו ואמו. Each person has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our father and mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile and given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by love. We each have a name given by celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and given by our death. Let's rise for Al Maleh on page 68. Al Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bamramim Hamseim Menuchanan Nuchanat Tachat Kanfei Ashkina Im Kedushim Uturim Kazar Harkia Masirim Et Nishmat Josy Salomon Josy Shalcha Lo Lama Baal Rachamim Yastireha B'Seita Kanafav Lolamim V'yitzror B'Torah Chayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'Tanuch B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved one Josy who's entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold her in the embrace of your wings. Secure her soul in eternity. O God, she is yours, may she rest in peace, and we say, Amen. So as we remain standing before we move into Aleinu on page 72, it's customary at this point in the service to sound the shofar. I'm going to ask one of you to be a volunteer. Not to sound the shofar, just to do the call. Still. You can just say each one of those separately.
Tekiah. Shavarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shua. Tekiah. Tekiah Shavarim. Shua.
Strong reminder that Rosh Hashanah is coming, isn't it? Aleinu, page 72. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet g'dala l'yotzei breshit shehunas v'shamayim v'yosed haaretz u'mashov yakarov v'shamayim imal v'shkinat zo b'gavhei maromim hu Eloheinu einod v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. On page 84 is the Kaddish.
Amen.
Hamakom Yenachem Etchem B'toch Shah Havlei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May the source of peace comfort all who are mourners, here and in Jerusalem and around the world. And we say, Amen. Friends, if I could ask you to please hold back to wait for Josy's family to head out to the foyer, and we can greet them there. Greet each other with the word simchas. May we see each other at times of joy. And we wish you not just a long life, but a good life. Amen.
Well done.